Radio call-in shows often make for car crash moments, particularly as you never know what to expect. Producers are supposed to weed out callers who are abusive, racist, or bigoted, but they can still sometimes slip through. Here's Sangita Myska presenting on LBC.
I just want to explain to you my situation.
Yeah,
I come
please.
from a family of 10 kids. And my mother worked 12-hour nights at the power station in the canteen.
Yeah.
My dad died when we were younger.
I'm sorry.
I never had free school meals. I firmly believe that it's not the government's job to feed kids. I believe it's down to the parents. I don't believe all this, what you're saying, let's all sit together and have a meal and all that kind of stuff. I don't believe any of that. And the reason why I'm saying that is because you're on UK radio. How are the kids doing in Africa? Do they get free school meals?
Well, for some children, it depends where you are in Africa, actually. I was born in Africa, so I can tell you a little bit about it.
I know you were, yeah. I know you. Exactly, you were.
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends where you are in Africa.
The likes of you and Marcus Rashford come on UK TV and radio telling us all what the government should do, and your own country don't provide any, not even a national health service. So do us a favour and shut up.
Okay, hang on, Anna. Listen, if you want to have a conversation, that's totally fine. But please don't be rude to me. Oh, can we not get her back? I think she's hung up. That's a real shame, actually, because I would have liked to talk to you, Anna, in a bit more depth. I would say a couple of things. This is my country. Yes, I was born abroad. Yes, I'm of Indian heritage, but I grew up here and I have been educated here in state schools. I am very passionate about the future of this country. I have always paid my taxes because I've always been paid PAYE. And I think it's absolutely right for me to use my platform here on national radio to advocate for things that I think are for the social good. And you know, clearly, Anna, you do listen to me because you've heard me refer to the fact that I was born in East Africa. And we came here, I have to say, it wasn't something that my parents chose to do. They felt forced to do that. And we're very grateful that we came here. But equally, I would say I have made a contribution to this country, as have my brother and sister, and actually, frankly, every immigrant in my family, certainly in my immediate circle, family and friends. And I would say to suggest that I am not allowed to have an opinion on issues of deprivation or issues of levelling up society, or advocate for people that perhaps aren't as well off as I am, and I'm very grateful to have a job, I think is wrong, and I think it's short-sighted.
What an awful call. Sangita Myska was really composed in response, not that she should have to be. What jumps out to me is the claim from the caller that she was one of 10 kids raised by a single mum working 12-hour days, didn't get free school meals, something which, by the way, isn't a recent innovation from Labour. Laws requiring all local authorities to provide nutritious meals for school kids were first passed in 1944, literally during the Second World War. In 1946, free milk for all children was introduced. It was in the 1980s that Margaret Thatcher's government peeled a lot of this back, with Labour trying to return things back to the pre-Thatcher settlement in the early 2000s. In short, free school meals are not that new. Also, in terms of food subsidies and healthcare, these things exist in many, many countries, not just Britain. Ash, I really want to know your thoughts on this story. The reaction from Sangita Myska really interests me, as well as the question, kind of hinging on I'm a model minority, I pay my taxes. Where do you sit on that?
Well, look, power to Sangita Myska for remaining calm and collected and polite, because let me tell you, I would have been breaching every Ofcom rule there is if somebody spoke to me like that. You would hear the music and the little sign that goes up being held by a cartoon dog saying technical difficulties, will be right back. So look, power to her for remaining calm. I think that this shows the trap that people of colour are in when they're being hit with racism, which is being packaged in a story of working class identity and deprivation. Because then what do? Do you say, actually, hang on, I don't think that you are as good an authority as you're making yourself out to be on what it is people experiencing deprivation need, which is actually, I think, a fair enough point if you're saying that states don't have a responsibility to make sure kids are being fed. What next? States don't have a responsibility to make sure kids aren't being beaten. Where do you stop in terms of saying that the state doesn't have a responsibility to ensure child well-being? There's a reason why we've got child protection services. There's a reason why there are statutory obligations for people who come into contact with children, like nursery workers and teachers and doctors. So where do you want that to end? So either you say, actually, you're talking a load of bollocks, which very few call-in radio presenters can get away with. You've got somebody like James O'Brien, who's made a name for himself doing that. And it also doesn't escape my notice that he's able to do that as a privately educated white man. Or you try and play this game of like, yeah, I'm listening and I'm taking your concerns seriously, which works up to the point that someone hits you with the big old racism stick. Now, I can understand why Sangita Myska essentially played the card of, I'm the good immigrant. I'm the good immigrant. I've come here. I've paid taxes. I'm the good immigrant. I've come here. I've contributed and I've worked really hard. I'm the good immigrant. And I'm not going to give you a sob story. I'm actually going to say how good my family have it and we're incredibly grateful. And that is itself a product of racism. It's not an antidote to racism. It's not a refutation of racism. It's a product of racism and the kinds of narratives that people of color, and in particular people of color who find themselves in more elite in class term spaces. And I think that there's limited value of that. Like, I actually think that telling that woman to go fuck herself is completely legitimate. And what's more, maybe is what's needed. You can say, look, we can have a debate till the cows come home about what level of state support you think is necessary. That's fine. But if you tell me to shut up purely because of the color of my skin, and you can tell that it's about the color of the skin because they also mentioned Marcus Rashford, who was, of course, born in this country, then get fuck off. And you know what? Let Ofcom find me. But you know what, Aaron, that's why I don't host a radio shows, because I would do things like that.
There is clearly this obsession with the idea that Britain is somehow persecuted, exploited, and it's clearly a projection. It's inverting the reality of the historic situation. And what's interesting for me is Sangita Myska is Indian heritage, born in Tanzania. Tanzania was a British colony till 1961. So I don't know her personal situation, but her parents, if they lived there, would have been British nationals. And this is a problem for, I think, people like this caller, is that, look, the country, which it wasn't a country, by the way, till 1945, ostensibly, it was an empire. And these people were subjects of an empire. And you were telling them that they were part of this and that this was the mother country. And then at some point, really, 40s, 50s, 60s, people start going, oh, actually, maybe not. We don't want you all coming here. So why is somebody of Indian heritage in East Africa in the first place? It's not happenstance. They didn't go for the weather or to grow nice coffee beans. It's because, the economic whims of the British Empire relocated labour and capital like nobody's business.
I actually think that this is the stuff that needs to be taught in schools. And there's a wonderful phrase from Kojo Karam. He says, it's commonly said that Britain had an empire. It would be more true to say that an empire had Britain. Britain, as a political entity, as a nation, was shaped by empire. The Act of Union between Scotland and England is one about two powers with colonial ambitions. And so who we are without that empire is still something which is being fiercely litigated. And I think this is something which needs to be taught in schools, because then it starts opening up, I think, really important social and cultural critiques as well as historical political ones. Because then once you start seeing the history of Britain as something which is being shaped not in Westminster, but out there in the imperial hinterland, coming back to us, well, then your ideas around who really belongs here and who doesn't, those things start being challenged. So, Aaron, I think that is something which should be taught in schools. But what should have happened on that radio show is, whether it's Tanzania, Kerala, or London, you can get your ass beat, Anna.